Hey everyone, it's Alan Shimel, DevOps.com, DevOps TV, and we're here at IBM Think 2018 from Las Vegas. And I'm joined right now by Chris Vernon,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
And Chris, you are a DevOps consultant. Well, a consultant. DevOps is one of the things you're involved in for a company called TrueTech. But
Yeah.
uh, you work with a lot of the IBM products. You're an IBM partner. Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
fair?
actually not a partner. I'm an independent consultant,
Okay.
but I work with IBM very closely on their offerings.
Got it. And you work with like large financial banking types of clients in helping them with their challenges around basically doing more faster, automating, and as part of that you mentioned you work a lot with the Urban Code, IBM
That is
Urban Code
that is correct.
suite
Yep.
of tools. So Chris, what kind of problems are you seeing with your customers out there that Urban Code is helping you with?
So what I'm noticing, and I'm really starting to piece it together more in the last few months, is that platforms now are changing as fast as applications used to change.
Yeah,
So we used to take 3 years to put out an application, and now we take 3 years to re-platform. Unfortunately, many apps get left stranded in the dirt as all this happens because new platforms are creative and innovative, but in large enterprises, they typically don't come with the funding to migrate the applications from
orphans.
existing platform. Yeah, so we end up with all those orphaned. So what we do with things like a product like Urban Code is we try to kind of level that out. We kind of get the bumps out of the road so that we can make it more transparent to the application teams what platform they're going to. And some of the things we've been able to do are like adaptive deployment, where I can have your Java app, and I can deterministically figure out what to do at deployment time. Am I going into a Docker kind of environment, or am I going into a PaaS kind of environment? And I can adaptively deploy and control those things.
Sure. I mean, and that's sort of, let's call it the portability of applications. And unfortunately, if it wasn't really designed that way from the get-go, and this is always the big thing between greenfields and brownfield, right?
Right.
If you have a greenfield, oh yeah, it's always easy.
Yes.
Brownfield, if that app wasn't really designed to be portable, it can present problems for sure. Now, Chris, when we talk about large banking, financial customers, a lot of their existing applications are built on mainframe.
God, that's correct.
And there aren't a lot of tools out there, frankly, that can help you, make mainframe apps portable. Urban Code happens to be one of them, obviously, with their IBM heritage.
Right.
You would think they'd be the prime candidate, and they are. But are you seeing, sort of mainframe apps moving around?
Well, what I'm seeing right now is an attempt to mature continuous delivery within the existing platform.
Got it.
So if you're in mainframe, they're trying to bring continuous delivery practices into the
To the
mainframe
mainframe.
space, which is an interesting adventure, mainly because of the historical background of the people that we're dealing with.
Sure.
So you go to start using a GitLab type of tool, they're just not familiar with that. They're not familiar with the branching and merging strategy. So before we even get to deployment, we're having all of these
It's
challenges.
a little bit of an educational socialization
Yes.
issue. Because, I mean, they get the concept, let's say, of provisioning. They may get the concept of what a repository is.
Correct.
A GitHub, so forth. But, the idea of using these newfangled tools, these DevOps tools,
Right.
on the mainframe is they're resistant because it's changed. No one
Right.
embraces that. You know what else, though? At least I see, Chris, because I speak to a lot of organizations, obviously, is the idea of some of these mainframe applications also moving to a hybrid model where, certain data elements and functionality and for security reasons, stability reasons, scalability reasons, they have to stay on the mainframe.
Correct.
But some of the UIs and stuff like that, we can put on forward-facing, cloud-based stuff.
Correct.
and then tie into the mainframe in the back. So you get this hybrid.
Yeah.
And I think, over time, we'll probably see, at least in our time, right? Maybe generation after us, but in our time, mainframes aren't going away. We'll see more of this hybrid
Correct.
type of infrastructure than anything else.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of incentive to go to the new platforms.
Mhm.
But when you look at a business as a whole, as an investable entity, where you want to see value delivered to a customer,
Mhm.
it's more important to get the value to the customer on any platform you have, rather than to spend 3 years
Just
replatforming
replatforming.
and giving them nothing.
You know what? You mentioned that. You mentioned the concept of orphaned applications where the kind of the platform went away. And as equally big a issue is the proliferation of computer languages, right?
Right.
Every PhD student today has their own language they wrote. And we did a survey on this maybe a year more ago now. How many different languages are you using in your IT department? And
Right.
it was something like over a dozen,
Yeah.
right? Everything from, staples like a Java or maybe a C. And then you got Ruby, and then Ruby on Rails, and then Go, and Golang, and there's as many languages as there are platforms as there are applications, and so again, portability is just sometimes sacrificed. And what do? Right? Just as, go find someone. Interesting, just aside, we had a writer who wrote about his experiences learning COBOL. He's in his 60s.
Yeah.
Linux programmer, sysadmin for years. Went back and learned COBOL, and he was, writing about his experience. Can I tell you, it was one of our highest rated articles? Because there's a lot of old COBOL programmers out there. They lay low, right?
Right.
Because they're not the cool kids anymore.
Right.
But there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was making this joke last night with some friends about all these emerging technologies. And I said application development now is looking a lot like the millennials that are developing
The apps.
The apps. I was calling it the me pipeline.
Mhm.
I want to get what I want to do out the door and doing it the way I want to do it. And that's the 20%. And then there's the 80% that are coming behind on this and having to pick up the pieces and take all these apps and roll out larger systems.
Right. And making business, large enterprises, they can't stop especially if we're going to be doing continuous delivery, can't stop every time we're going to do a delivery.
Yeah.
That's not really the idea here. So you're right. It's an interesting thing. I think it's also, as I started DevOps.com about 4 or 5 years ago, and originally it was, that's a startup thing. That's DevOps stuff's for startups. But what we've seen is that, in fact, DevOps is actually embraced by enterprises, large enterprises, like financial institutions. Yep. And so, you can't tell me that they don't need the urban codes and the continuous delivery kind of processes and methodologies, because they need it to compete.
That's correct, but it all depends on the application size.
Mm-hmm.
And once I compared it to aircraft, you have small planes that can fly by themselves in uncontrolled airspace.
Yeah.
They're not affecting a lot of people, and they can go at any rate they want and use any equipment they want.
Yeah.
Then there are the big things that have to land at the large airports, and they have to be sequenced. They have to be brought into land in a correct way, and if things go wrong, they can harm a lot of people.
Yep.
And that's what I see in large systems. There's room for everybody, but we need to figure out exactly which apps fit into which airport.
Which one. You're 100% correct. So, Chris, thanks for joining us today and discussing
My pleasure,
this. This is
Peter.
great. Before I let you go, I just wanted to ask, what did you think of IBM Think so far?
It's been great. I've been kind of busy doing some panel discussions and so
Great.
forth, and a lot of people here, and very, very interesting stuff.
Good for you. All right. Chris, thanks for being our guest. Enjoy the rest of Think. This is Alan Shimel for DevOps.com and DevOps TV at IBM Think 2018.